Alright, bro, let's keep it real you can be good looking, tall, in good shape, but there are small mistakes, small enough to seem harmless, yet big enough to make attraction disappear very quickly. The problem is, most men have no idea they are making them. Today I'm not criticizing you, and I'm not trying to scare you. I just want to point out one thing. There are very small behaviors that can instantly turn women off, and most men do them every day without realizing it. Let's begin. Mistake number 1. Losing respect for yourself. I want to start with the most serious mistake. Not because it is rare, but because it is so common that many people are making it without knowing. It happens when you accept being treated carelessly, and then convince yourself that it's fine. Last-minute cancellations, replies that come half a day later, hot and cold communication, and yet you still smile, stay gentle, act understanding, and you think you're doing the right thing. I used to think that way. I have been there. Not because she was a bad person, but because at that time, I did not know how to protect myself. The issue is not whether she is busy or not. The issue is that when this happens repeatedly, and you continue to accept it in silence, you are unintentionally sending a very clear signal that your time is not important, that your feelings can be rescheduled, and once that happens, the relationship is no longer on equal ground. It tilts, very slightly, but enough for attraction to begin fading. Women are not intentionally trying to hurt you. Most of the time, they are simply responding to the position you place yourself in. When you do not set boundaries, she does not feel the need to respect boundaries. Not because she is a bad person, but because people always respond according to what is allowed. Attraction cannot exist where respect is gone. I know some people will think that if they are more easygoing, more understanding, then she will value them more, but in reality, it is the opposite. When you constantly say it's fine while inside, you are not fine at all. You're not being kind, you're abandoning yourself, and that the other person can feel, not logically, but emotionally. The feeling that you are willing to take a loss just to stay, and no one is attracted to someone who is lowering their own value. Respect does not come from speaking loudly or acting tough. It comes from calm clarity. When you say, yeah, it's okay, but next time, let me know earlier. You are not attacking anyone. You are simply letting the other person know where you stand, and a man who knows where he stands is always far more attractive than one who is constantly trying to please everyone. Remember, this woman can only be attracted to a man who respects himself. Without boundaries, there is no attraction. And if you do not start protecting yourself in small situations like this, then everything else, sooner or later, will drift out of alignment. Mistake number 2, turning her into the center of your emotional world. There is a mistake many men make, and they often only realize it when things have already started to cool down. That is when you unintentionally turn her into the center of your emotions. All it takes is for her to reply a little slower than usual, or send shorter messages, and your mind immediately fills with questions. Is she mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Does she still like me? You may not say all of it out loud, but that anxiety shows up in the way you text, the way you ask questions, the way you wait for a reply. I am not saying this to blame you. I have been there myself. When you genuinely care about someone, feeling worried is completely normal. But the problem begins when you do not process those emotions on your own, and instead place them on her shoulders. Every question, like "Are you okay?" may sound harmless, but when repeated, it turns her into the one who has to reassure, explain, and make sure that you are still okay. And no one wants to be dating while also acting as an emotional caretaker. Women can sense very clearly when a man needs them to stay emotionally stable, not through direct words, but through energy, through how quickly you react to small changes, through how your mood rises and falls with each message. At that point, attraction begins to turn into pressure, and once she feels responsible for keeping you from feeling anxious or insecure, attraction almost disappears immediately. A grounded man is someone who can sit with his own emotions. When he feels uneasy, he does not rush to ask, does not rush to check, does not rush to seek validation. He observes, he calms himself, and he only speaks once his mind is clear. For example, instead of asking, "Why do you seem distant today?" he simply says, "You seem busy today. We can talk later when you're free." Same situation, completely different energy. Understand this: sharing emotions is not wrong, but dumping emotions onto someone else is different. When you handle your emotions first, when you do not need her to prove that everything is okay, you become lighter, and it is that lightness that keeps attraction alive in the long run. Mistake number 3, living without rhythm, always being available. There is a very clear sign that a man is slowly losing his attraction, and that is when his life starts revolving around someone else. You reply the moment a notification appears. You cancel plans just because she suddenly becomes free. You are always available, always there, always saying, "I'm not busy." It sounds like care, but in reality, it sends a completely different signal that you have nothing more important than waiting for her. I'm not saying this to tell you to pretend to be busy. Replying slowly for the sake of it is not the point. The issue is not response speed, but life rhythm. An attractive man is not attractive because he is always busy, but because he has his own direction, things to do, a life that does not get thrown off balance by a single message. Women sense this very quickly. When you're always present, always responding, always arranging everything around her, she does not feel prioritized. She feels that you have nothing else to prioritize, and that, even unconsciously, reduces attraction. Because attraction always comes with the feeling that the other person is moving forward in life. Imagine 2 men. One replies instantly, but has no clear plans for tomorrow. The other has a schedule, goals, and things he is pursuing, and only replies when he is genuinely free. The second man does not need to say he is busy. His energy says it for him. Not because he is important, but because his life is in motion. I used to think that caring more would keep someone around, but later I understood that what preserves attraction is not unconditional availability, but building a life that you yourself want to live. When you have your own rhythm, when you do not lose yourself just to wait for someone, you naturally become more attractive. A man with attraction is a man who is going somewhere in life, not someone sitting there staring at a screen, waiting for a message to arrive. Mistake number 4, trying to impress instead of living truthfully. There is a type of behavior that looks confident on the surface, but underneath is insecurity. It is when you feel the need to constantly prove your value. You say you are busy. You talk about your work, projects, plans, and achievements, not because someone asked, but because you fear that if you do not say it, they will not see you as good enough. I understand that feeling. I've been in the phase of thinking that if I did not show people my worth, they would not respect me. But the truth is, a grounded person does not need to prove anything. When you try to impress, you unintentionally send the signal that you are seeking validation, and that, even if you never say it directly, the other person can feel it, not through the content of what you say, but through the energy behind it, the energy of trying to be more than you are, instead of being comfortable with who you already are. Women are very sensitive to this. When you brag too much, they do not find you more interesting. They begin to feel cautious, because showing off often comes with hiding something. On the other hand, when you talk about ordinary success as real things, without trying to make them sound impressive, people feel at ease, like when you talk about learning to cook, picking up a new skill, or struggling with very human, everyday matters. Those things do not make you smaller. They make you more real. Attraction is not about what you do, but about how you show up. When you do not need to be better than anyone, do not need to prove anything, you radiate a sense of safety, and that feeling makes others want to be near you. Showing off makes people guarded, but honesty, ordinariness, and humility make people exhale. Mistake number 5, making her feel that you are afraid of losing her. There is a very small behavior that reveals a great deal about what is going on inside. It is when you send overly long messages just to explain something very simple. You're afraid she will misunderstand, afraid she will think differently, so you add details, add reasons, add context, add even things no one asked for, and you think you are doing this to make everything clearer. But in reality, it does the opposite. Emotion lies in how something is said, not in the number of words. When you over-explain, the other person does not hear clarity. They hear anxiety. They sense that you're trying to hold on to something, instead of standing calmly where you are. Over-explaining is not good communication. It is a sign of fear of being misunderstood, fear of being abandoned, Fear of losing connection. I have done this before. I used to think that if I explained enough, clearly enough, no problems would arise. But later I understood that attraction does not require justification. A grounded man can say one very short sentence and still feel fine with it. No need to double check. No need to correct himself. No need to worry about what others might think. A very simple example. Instead of sending a long message explaining why you replied late, just say, "I was busy with something. I'm free now." That is enough. Not because the other person does not deserve an explanation, but because you do not need to prove your innocence over very ordinary things. When you say less but with certainty, you create a sense of reassurance. Not reassurance because you are trying hard, but because you are not afraid. And it is precisely that calm certainty that keeps attraction alive over the long term. Mistake number 6, turning compliments into begging. There is one thing that is very easy to misunderstand, that giving more compliments earns more points. You find her beautiful, you say it. You find her cute, you say it again. You like her voice, her eyes, her smile, and you say everything. It sounds sincere, but when compliments appear too frequently, they begin to lose their weight, not because compliments are wrong, but because they are overused. Compliment less, but make it memorable. One well-timed compliment carries far more weight than 10 repeated ones. When you compliment constantly, it stops being appreciation. It turns into a need for feedback. As if you are waiting for a signal that you're doing things right, that you're being liked in return. And that feeling, the other person senses it very clearly. Women are not uncomfortable with compliments. They are uncomfortable when compliments come with pressure. Pressure to respond, to smile, to keep you feeling okay. At that point, compliments no longer create connection. They create burden. On the other hand, a compliment that goes deeper, one that does not focus vaguely on appearance, but on how she makes you feel when you are around her, makes someone pause and remember. Complimenting to express your feelings is fine. Complimenting to be liked is not. When you do not need a response or validation, your compliments become light, and that lightness is what makes people want to stay longer. Mistake number 7, losing your real self in front of her. There is something many people do not notice. You are relaxed, cheerful, and natural when you are with friends. But when you stand in front of her, you become someone else, quieter, tenser, overly careful. You start thinking about every sentence, every word, afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of losing points, and slowly, you are no longer yourself. Women sense this change very quickly, not because they are overly critical, but because inconsistency always feels inauthentic. They do not know which version of you is real, and when there is uncertainty, they will not open up. Women do not fall in love with performances, they fall in love with consistency. They want to know who the man in front of them really is, not the role he is trying to maintain. I used to think I needed to be more proper, more mature, quieter to make an impression. But the harder I tried, the further I drifted from myself. And when you're not comfortable being yourself, others cannot feel comfortable around you either. Long-term attraction does not come from being perfect. It comes from being real. Keep who you are, adjust respect slightly if needed, but do not change your essence. When she knows who you are, when you're not acting or tensing up, that is when the connection has space to grow long-term. Mistake number 8. Confusing appearance with energy. There is a very common misunderstanding that if you're taller, better looking, with a better body, then everything will automatically be fine. Appearance does help you open the door faster. People notice. People become curious. But that is all it does. Appearance cannot make someone stay if you're not solid on the inside. I've met many men who look perfectly fine, but after a few conversations, being around them feels exhausting. Not because they are bad people, but because their energy is insecure. They lack boundaries. They have no clear direction. And when others are around them, they are forced to tense up as well. That kills attraction faster than any physical flaw ever could. Appearance opens the door, but it is energy that decides whether she stays or leaves. The energy of a man who is calm, who knows who he is, who knows what he wants, who does not need permission to exist, who does not need to try hard to be chosen. Correcting mistakes is only the first step. What keeps women is how you show up every day. When you are grounded, you do not need to do much. You simply need to be yourself and let others feel that. If you are listening to this and realizing that you have made a few of these mistakes before, I want you to understand one thing. There is nothing wrong with you. Most men have to stumble, have to feel pain, before they slowly understand. I did too. The only difference is that some people learn from it, while others keep repeating the same mistakes across different relationships. What I shared today is not meant to turn you into someone else. It is meant to bring you back to your rightful position. More calm, more clear, with stronger boundaries. And when you live in alignment with your values, attraction comes as a result, not something you have to beg for. If you find content like this useful, if you want to understand psychology, relationships, and how to become a more grounded man from the inside, then subscribe to the channel, not to watch casually, but so that each time you come back here, you are reminded of the person you're building. I will continue talking about the things no one taught us when we were young. And for now, thank you for listening. I will see you in the next video.